On June 30th, 1503, Christopher Columbus was stranded in modern-day Jamaica. The indigenous people of the island initially welcomed Columbus, but after 6 months of him and his crew mooching, they stopped feeding him. Fortunately, Columbus had on board astronomical tables developed by a royal astronomer. He noticed that a lunar eclipse was fast approaching. Using this information to his advantage, he had told the people of the island that God was angry with their treatment of Columbus and his crew. He had proclaimed that God would provide a clear sign of his displeasure by making the rising full moon appear inflamed in wrath. According to Columbus's son, people came running from every direction to the ships, laden with provisions. They prayed that the admiral intercede by all means on their behalf. We are well aware that Columbus didn't carry favor with God, but instead had valuable information. And even more importantly, he had valuable information that others didn't have access to. Therein lies our story. Information and the dirtbags who have it ahead of everyone else. You are among the crowd at the Australian Open. Djokovic, the eternal quarter-century-old, enters the stadium. However, you are not there to revel in his greatness, but instead profit from his playing. Hidden in your completely believable hairpiece is a wig microphone. Calling serve. Am I on? He serves, he aces. Yes. The umpire makes the call officially and keys it into his electronic tablet. Believe it or not, you've already profited. On the other end of your microphone is your partner placing bets before they close. Tennis is one of the most popular betting markets in the world, with the opportunity to bet on every point. Your advantage is the speed at which you place the bet. You transmitting information about the outcome ahead of an entire market of bettors puts you at a great advantage. Ethical? No. Effective? Absolutely. The time advantage you have is rather small. The umpire making the call, the time it takes to update the score, and the amount of time it takes for the betting platform to process it. It's perhaps a minute, but a minute is all you need. It's an entire minute of you effectively knowing the future before anyone else. Courtsiders travel around the world betting on tennis and other sports, and while it's frowned upon, it certainly is profitable. A trader working for the Royal Bank of Canada places an order on a block of trades. He sees that 10,000 shares of Intel are offered at $22 a share, and the moment he pushed the button to buy the orders, they have vanished. It was as if the price on his screen was an illusion. Eventually, he was fed up enough to get in touch with tech support. Convinced that it was some kind of user error, he offered to demonstrate. 100,000 shares of AMD were being offered for $4, 10,000 on BATS, 35,000 on the New York Stock Exchange, 35,000 on NASDAQ, and 35,000 on Direct Edge. He'd wait a few seconds, and the moment he pressed the button to buy the offerings, they would all disappear. The entire story is the subject of Michael Lewis's book, Flash Boys. Brad Katsuyama, the hero of the story, eventually uncovered just what was happening. His block of 100,000 shares weren't being offered for $4 in the same place. They were spread out over a number of exchanges in the market. His first block of shares would be purchased in BATS, and his last block of trades would be purchased in the New York Stock Exchange, which interestingly is not in New York but in New Jersey. This would all happen within 2 milliseconds. This might seem small compared to our fumbling umpire at the Rod Laver Arena, but it turns out that he's competing against high-frequency trading firms who bought the right to place their computers beside the data center, giving them the ability to reach the New York Stock Exchange in 476 microseconds, 4 times faster than Brad Katsuyama. HFT firms would pick up the signal that Brad had purchased the shares in BATS. They would then race to the other exchanges and buy up all the shares to then sell it back to him at a higher price, skimming pennies off of every trade. Eventually, he managed to solve the problem by making his orders slower to reach each of the exchanges at roughly the same time. With just a few milliseconds of an advantage in information, HFT firms rake in billions. The lengths these firms go to increase their speed advantage for just microns of a second would astound you. Running cables through mountains and under rivers, bidding against one another for a slightly closer proximity to a data center, and even paying to ensure that their competition isn't aware of just how close they are. Markets exist to speculate on the future. Will Pfizer beat their expected earnings? Will Mark Zuckerberg realize that Meta is not happening? Will the Canadian real estate market plummet so that I could finally purchase a house? When ordinary investors are competing against high-frequency traders, they often do so with yesterday's information. And in contrast, it would appear that HFT firms are playing the same game with today's information. A high-speed network, a seat right at the action of a sporting event, and getting a peek at documents point to the fact that the market is not always fair. But in the pursuit of profits, who really cares about fair? Thanks for watching. Till next time.